Welcome to something I've actually been wanting to do for over 11, close to 12 years now. Today we are reviving a deck that I've been playing back in 2007-ish on Magic Workstation quite a lot, and ever since I've been thinking about that deck almost, I would say, on a weekly basis. It's very different. It uses kind of crazy cards. I updated it with a couple of new cards. Of course, Gitaxian Probe has to be there because honestly, just remove it from Legacy. I hate it. It's stupid. But this deck is the manifestation of stupidity on the highest of levels. And with that, I present to you Wacky Deli. First of all, the name. So apparently it's a reference to, you probably know Rugrats, the cartoon. I don't even know which character or thing or concept it refers to, but the first guy who brought it up on MTG Salvation back then, there's probably a link up there that I'm gonna put on my Facebook, on my Facebook, yeah, on my website. He called it that, and that's what we're sticking by. Apparently it's even misspelled, but yeah, what can you do? So what is Wacky Deli? Let's call it Wacky Deli. First of all, it's all about this card. Read it. Read it and tell me that you never thought that anybody would ever play this in a competitive environment, let alone in Legacy. But trust me, 2007, I was actually winning a ton of games off this card. You sacrifice your entire board, you discard your entire hand. It's like claws of chicks and one was nothing and one card. But yeah, I mean, I'm really not sure whether the effect or the artwork is more amazing, because both are pretty badass. Just check this out. So what are we doing with this? Well, there's only one card that really wants to interact with this, and that's our win condition, Barren Glory, or as it used to be called, the cheese stands alone. When you've got this in play, and your upkeep comes around, and you've got no cards in hand, and no other permanents, you get a trigger, and that trigger actually wins the game. How are we gonna get this into play? Now here's the idea. We have a Academy Rector, 1/2 from Urza's Destiny. And if this guy dies, or is it a guy or girl? I don't know. If this Rector dies, it goes to the graveyard, and from there you can exile it. You get a trigger, and if you do exile it, then you can search your library for an enchantment and put that enchantment into play. So what we are looking to do here is to cast Academy Rector, then on the opponent's end step, cast Kavak's Bite, sacrifice Academy Rector along with our other permanents, and discard our entire hand, get the Rector trigger, get Barren Glory into play, and then it doesn't even matter if this resolves. Like, target player loses 5 life, you will probably win 1 out of 100 games just because of the life loss, but since you can't even like chain those, because you have to discard one to the other, you can't even like put 2 on a stack at the same time. That doesn't work. So you're really just looking for the additional effect, and since this is part of the cost, discarding and sacrificing your permanents, it doesn't matter whether this resolves. Like, people try to counter this, and I will tell you, especially in paper, people will try to counter this all the time, thinking that it would make a difference. It doesn't. Like, if you want to fight over anything, fight over the Rector, but if the Rector comes down, and it will come down, considering that we get this, and after sideboarding even Thoughtseize. Doesn't sound like much, but you also got a lot of card advantage. So once the Rector comes down, the opponent is put in this weird situation where like he either can't attack, because if you attack into Rector and Rector dies, it's probably going to be bad for you, but not as bad as in other decks. Like in this deck, you quite often don't even want your Rector to randomly die in combat. If it does, or if you're like put into a situation where you get like turn 2 Rector and have Cabal Therapy around, or Phyrexian Tower, and you just want to go for some value, you usually either get Form of the Dragon, which turns you into a dragon. Like, you actually literally become a nah, not literally, but you know, you do become a dragon. This is like kind of your emergency button. You don't really want to be forced into a game where you have to go for Form of the Dragon, but if you do, it can sometimes really save your ass. It's like a moat, but with a dragon attached to it. So what's better than a flying moat with a dragon? And yeah, you get the idea. You get to shoot whatever is annoying to you. 5 life, which is the life total that you're being set to, can be kind of tricky, especially if there's Deathrite around. But you can always, of course, shoot the Deathrite and hope that they don't have like Bolt plus Deathrite activation, because that still kills you. Then this is the other card that you can go for. Like if you get a random turn 2 Rector and you can sacrifice it to therapy and you need to do something with it, you get Thought Reflection. This is the card. It's kind of crazy. Like if you draw a card, you actually do draw an extra card. So in your draw step, you draw 2. Gitaxian Probe, you draw 2. Ponder, you immediately draw 2 out of the 3 you see. And now here comes the big deal. Brainstorm, you draw 6. Put back 2. Like this is something even Alex Bernuccini would just like dream about. You draw 6. Put back 2. Knight's Whisper, nice to have. You draw 4 or 2. Yeah, that's nice. Usually against grindy decks that don't threaten like a quick kill or have no combo, this is crazy. This like goes out of control very quickly. So what's the problem of the deck? Back then, not so much. I mean, we didn't have all these cool cards. Actually, we had most of those cards that I see here. We didn't have Brainstorm, we didn't have Gitaxian Probe, and I think Ponder wasn't around. No, Ponder came out in 2007, but latest 2007, I'm pretty sure. Or was it 9? I don't remember. Anyway, so the problem of this deck is one card. It's called Deathlord Shaman. Now, you look at Academy Rector, it says, if you do, comma, search your library, blah, 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 blah. So it means the Rector goes to the graveyard, and if they remove the Rector in response, say through Deathlord Shaman or Surgical Extraction, you don't get to resolve the trigger. Now, a lot of times you will still get to do it, because people are just not aware how Academy Rector works, because they... Well, I guess they still use that kind of template for cards, but not so much anymore. But yeah, if they have Deathlord Shaman, you're in trouble. That's why we have 4 Swords to Plowshares, to get rid of the Deathlord Shaman. Also sometimes like randomly by time, or hit other stuff like an Ooze. Like it's hardly ever a bad card, and like Swords is either like a card you really, really want to see, or a card you will side out. So in a Brainstorm deck, I think that's still something you can easily have in the main deck, especially since like you couldn't otherwise beat a turn 1 Deathlord Shaman, which would be kind of weird. Now, I lied, you actually can beat a turn 1 Deathlord Shaman even if you don't have Swords, because here comes a very, very old school card, a card that used to be like around in many, many decks, especially in combo decks like 10, 15 years ago, and that is Abeyance. Now read Abeyance. What does this remind you of? Until end of turn, target player can't cast instant or sorcery spells, and that player can't activate abilities that aren't vulnerabilities. Draw a card. By the way, nice combo with Thought Reflection. I've actually put it to use at times. Like when you cycle this, you cycle it for 2. So what this does is it shuts off Surgical Extraction and it shuts off Deathlord Shaman. It also shuts off more random stuff like, say, Relic of Progenitus, or I don't know, right, Tormod's Crypt isn't really a card anymore, but in a way, it's a protection spell, also against, say, Force of Will, if you really need to protect against that. But also, it turns off a couple of other cards that are annoying to you. And, okay, and this is like a tiny upside, but it might come up at times. If you play against Storm, and they go for it, and then you eventually just, like, cast Abeyance at any point, preferably, like, one in response to one of their last rituals, then their turn just ends and you draw a card and it's your turn, and then they might still kill you on the next turn, but usually it's like, it's a pretty big blowout. So if they see Abeyance, they usually can't go off. It's like a Mindbreak Trap that costs 2 mana and draws a card, so it's not bad. What else? We have Knight's Whisper, because like I tested this deck in a couple of configurations and I really wanted more raw card draw. Like I was experimenting with like more expensive cards like Chase, but yeah, as I said, that's just like too expensive. I also had like Dark Confidence in the main deck, but I eventually removed them again, because like the way this is structured, the opponent doesn't really want to use his creature removal in the first game, except for Swords to Plowshares, but you can play around that with Chemotherapy and Phyrexian Tower, not giving him the opportunity to even use that on Rector. So you would think that in the second game, maybe they take out all the creature removal, and then that's where you bring in Dark Confident. Against decks where you think you want to play the long game. Against heavy combo decks, I often keep a Knight's Whisper instead of Dark Confident, or let's say like quick combo decks, because it takes a while for Dark Confident to actually like make good on the initial investment and draw you 2 extra cards. So I prefer having the Knight's Whisper. But this is something that will always come in when I have like dead cards and just need to make room. So for the sideboard. On the sideboard, like for Leyline of the Void, I just feel you can go for Leyline, you can go for Surgical Life. If you have this amount of discards, I think Surgical is also a fine thing you can name. You can include, but for now I went with Leyline. just a personal preference in a deck like this that can also like very, very quickly hardcast Leyline if you happen to draw it. Pithing Needles, just because they are all around very good in Legacy. They are also another way to shut off Deathrite Shamans. They are also good against like these super quick Hex Mage or Dark Depth decks that could maybe pose an issue. Like, yes, you have Swords to Plowshares, but it's not like those decks don't have ways around that. Like, I recently lost a game with Elves where I couldn't Caracas because the other guy had Sylvan Safekeeper. So yeah, I just feel like these are all around good, and you could change them if you think there's something better, but yeah, I've got those for now. Thoughtseizes could also be Flusterstorms, I feel. I sometimes felt like, I wish those had been Flusterstorms, but they are Thoughtseizes because they can also take problematic creatures like Deathrite Shaman, which I feel is a pretty big upside. Like, people used to run Durus in this deck before Thoughtseize came around, or like people, like the 4 people in the entire world who still played that deck, I guess. And 4 is pretty generous, by the way. Yeah, so that's why I kept this one in. But could be something else like Flusterstorm, like I said. So what else do we have? We've got additional enchantments. First of all, this one, which is almost impossible to beat for Sneak and Show unless they bounce it, and usually they only play like 1 or maximum 2 bounce spells. Syndrome Convergence. It makes it so that their creatures can't attack you anymore. And you also get like the, I can't call it an alternate win condition, but it usually kills in like 2 or 3 turns. Yeah, more like, yeah, could even be, yeah, more like 3 turns, but yeah, depending on how much life they lost and whether you got in some sweet Mentor Beats or Confident Beans. So it's just something I want to have because it can be quite a blowout. Also, if you have it in hand, they go for Show and Tell and they don't play Omniscience, they're pretty much toast. Dovescape against all kinds of combo decks, maybe even control decks. It just gets down and it makes it pretty much impossible for them to win. Something about the Dovescape that scares me is that, like, if you play against something like Show and Tell, they go like Sneak Attack, get 4 tokens, show, or then Force of Will something, get 5 tokens. Suddenly they have like 9 tokens, and for us it's a little bit harder to keep up with that. So I've got it here because it probably might win some games and it's gonna be good, but I'm not 100% convinced of it. And then lately, Confiscate, just because I want to sacrifice Academy Rector to an Emrakul trigger and steal the Emrakul. It's just, you can totally cut this, and it's probably not worth it anyway, but it's just like, you know, we already have a lot of stuff going on against that kind of deck, but I just wanted extra. It's just, you know, that feel, and I've done it before, like, when was that? Emrakul hadn't even been printed yet, but people also ran, what was it? I don't even remember. The guy had something that made me sacrifice almost my entire board to some it also wasn't Thraxi Mundar, I think. I'm not even sure if that that also hadn't been printed yet. I don't remember. It was something crazy, and I pulled off this exact thing, and ever since I just want to have this in Wacky Deli. But as I said, you can not include it and play something else. Also important, like I mentioned earlier on Phyrexian Tower, just because it gives you the extra mana that you can also sometimes use to cast Kavak's Bite, because this deck is quite mana hungry. I tried to play the earlier versions without Dark Rituals. What are the extra cards I had? Oh yeah, I had more discard in the main deck, but then I realized, okay, this deck really needs the acceleration, and that's why I included the Dark Rituals. So, this is Wacky Deli, and let's just see how it performs in a league. See you there. Check it out.